everyone, I'm Marie Barber and I'd like to share with you our lymphedema story. Our little girl is almost 2 now and she has a condition called primary lymphedema. And now there's 2 types of lymphedema. One is primary and the other is secondary. Primary is when you're born with it, or it can come in early childhood or as an adolescent, or any time that some kind of trauma happens to a part of the body where the lymphedema would be. And then the secondary, which normally is in patients who have had cancer and they've had their lymph nodes removed. Now, for our little girl who has the primary lymphedema, we didn't notice anything when she was born. She was about 5 weeks old when we noticed that one of her hands and her arms was slightly bigger than the other. Now, we had absolutely no idea what this could be. We called the GP surgery and the nurse told us that it wasn't an emergency and to see how it goes for the next 2 weeks. Well, I couldn't really accept that, so I went onto Google and had a look at what the causes might be and whether we should be going to the A&E or something, and what I found was quite frightening. So we went to the A&E, we took her that evening and we were there for ages. The nurses and the doctors came in and nobody seemed to know what it was. I'd had a scan when I was 32 weeks pregnant, which showed her heart was fine, and heart's one of the conditions. I think it's some kind of heart disease, and you can have swelling in your arm. But I think they were satisfied that it wasn't that at that point, and everything else was fine with her. She was perfectly healthy other than the swelling in her arm and her hand. So they called a paediatrician at another hospital and they wanted us to go there, and this paediatrician wanted to see her. I did mention lymphedema as it was one of the things that I saw on the internet, on Google, and the doctor said, well, I've seen it but not really in babies before. So he wasn't sure, he didn't know. So the next day we went to see this paediatrician, which we thought we had an appointment for, but in fact it was a A&E children's type thing where you go and there was loads of sick kids in there. It was full, and there was 2 rooms full of sick children, and here we were with our 5-week-old baby that didn't really have any viral or anything like that. So we were there for, I think, a good 3 or 4 hours, and we decided with one of the nurses that we'd come back the next day. We were told we'd come back early instead of risking any further infection or anything like that, because she was so small. So we came back the next day and we were there again for about 6 hours, I think it was, before we saw anybody. Again, we saw somebody who we later found out was a junior doctor. We thought we were seeing the head consultant, but he just said, oh, just keep an eye on it. He didn't know what it was, or he wasn't really sure. So we went home. I got a call from our doctor to say that we'd left the hospital and they'd wanted to do an x-ray. So they had the head consultant on the phone. So we spoke to her, who said that we'd seen the junior doctor, and we explained what had happened, and she said, well, we need to do an x-ray. So we went back then for the 3rd day, and she had a x-ray on her arm and they didn't find anything in there. They did, I think they did a chest x-ray as well, and everything was fine. And we saw then an orthopedic doctor or I think he might have been a surgeon, and he came and he was the only one that made any sense out of everybody. He said if it's lymphedema, they won't do anything now anyway. They can't do anything, not when it's a little baby. They don't operate or anything like that. So we were referred to a consultant, and we'd go and see this consultant in a couple of months, and in the meantime she would go for an ultrasound. So we went home, and we wasn't really any further along, but a few months later we had an appointment with the consultant. She had no idea. She didn't know what it was. She sent us off to a plastic surgeon, and he didn't know what it was. It was at Alderhay Hospital in Liverpool. He hadn't got a clue, but no one likes to turn around and say they don't know what it is. He told us, oh, I don't think it's lymphedema, and then in the letter we got, oh, well, yes, it's likely lymphedema. And then when we had the ultrasound, they couldn't find anything. They also did a chest x-ray at that time, and they found swollen lymph nodes in the opposite side. The doctors called me up quite concerned that they'd found these swollen lymph nodes in the other side of her chest, and worried us to death because we had no idea what that meant. They wanted to know if we'd spoken to somebody about it. I've later found out that can be linked to leukemia, but we were worried out of our minds. I didn't sleep for a long time. It was months. And then we had to go back for another x-ray, and the lymph nodes had gone down, and we found out later on that children's lymph nodes actually do go. They can swell up and go down, and all the extra x-ray, or the further x-ray was just to make sure that was happening. But because the lack of communication between the doctors and the consultant, who was actually away, we got kind of caught in that with all the worry. But then, while all this is going on, I'm still looking online for answers, because no one else has given us any answers. And I come across LSN, which is Lymphoedema Support Network, and Lymphoedema, which is a support group on Facebook for people with primary and secondary lymphedema. And it was within that group that people advised us to call up LSN, and they would be able to help us further, which they did. They got us in contact with the proper lymphedema nurses that could help our little girl. And now lymphedema it's not curable, but it is manageable. And we had to go through quite another lengthy process to get funding, to get seen by these lymphedema nurses, because although we can get funding from the NHS, the place where we were going wasn't an NHS place. But by the time this was in the January, she finally got seen by somebody who knew what they were talking about. She was just over a year old, and we got her the compression garments which she has for her hand. She had cellulitis, which luckily we had been in touch with these people, so we knew that we had to go straight away and get antibiotics, because if that infection gets into the bloodstream, it can cause septicemia, which is obviously really bad. There's a lot of things that we use for her that help her manage it. She has obviously the compression, and we have cream. We have to make cream because she's allergic to pesticides and preservatives and things that are put in the creams that you were given from the doctors. So we make our own creams. We massage her hand and her arm, put the compression on. She uses magnetic technologies. We have a pad for her bed. She was waking up in the night crying, And again, we didn't know what it was. She couldn't speak obviously and tell us that it was hurting, and it was only when we massaged her arm did we find out that, you know, that would soothe her. So we went to the support group and asked people with lymphedema who could tell us what it's like, because if you look at everywhere else, it would generally tell you that lymphedema isn't painful, but in actual fact when you speak to somebody who has it, they will tell you that it is quite painful. So we got her this magnetic pad for her bed and her pillow, and she has slept through ever since. So that's really helped her. And then she has her diet as well. We're trying all different things. We're trying like less gluten, less dairy, and you know, it's just all about managing it and making her as comfortable as possible. Exercise is a really good thing. As she gets older, she'll be able to do more of that. But we really want to tell people our story so that they don't have to go through what we went through. We want to be able to spread awareness to people and to doctors all around the world really, especially in the UK. So if you know somebody who may have lymphedema, or a parent who's worried, you know, please send them to LSN, the Lymphedema Support Network, or LWO, which is lymphoedema. That's where you'll find all the information that you'll need. I'll leave the links in the bottom of this or the top, so you'll be able to have a look. And please share this, share the information with anybody that you can. It's really important that we get the message out there, and people are aware that there is help and they're not on their own. We don't want anybody to feel how we did. It was a really tough time, and it still is. It's still tough sometimes, but we have people there who we can go and we can speak to and ask questions, which makes it a lot better. Thank you for your time, and thank you for everyone who supports our events and our fundraising and our awareness. Thank you so much. Bye.